Hello, friends, and welcome to Inks and Issues, a book club podcast for comics. I'm your host, Jonah Gregory, former Yakuza turned house husband, and with me today...
My name is Kieran, and I take full responsibility for this.
Please don't cut off your pinky. Today we are talking about The Way-of-the-Househusband, which is a currently running manga where we're doing something crazy and covering something that's actually new.
Yeah. Also, John, I can't help but notice that you said Way of the Househusband, when in actual fact, the real name is Goku Shufudo. So just, you want to get those basic facts right.
You got me. I don't know how to read, so this makes having a book club podcast much more difficult.
Why didn't you tell me 89 episodes ago?
Well, I'm always it's really hard to find the audiobooks of comics, but I've been making it work.
And then in the first panel, Raphael turns to Michelangelo and he's like, yo, what's up with that? Then there's kind of like a long, skinny, rectangular panel.
I don't know why it being Ninja Turtles was so much funnier than what I thought you were going to say, which was Batman, which was funny in itself, but I guess because it just took a left turn on me. And then he said, this is where my parents died, Raphael. Speaking of, they did do that crossover movie, and did you see that ever, the animated one?
No. Was it good?
Actually, it's really good.
Okay.
And fun fact, the guy that talks Donatello, my favorite turtle, is the same actor who is the new Tom Servo from Mystery Science Theater on the last 2 seasons they did.
Oh my gosh.
Coincidence? I mean, obviously, yes,
probably, but
pretty cool to me, a person who loves both of those things. So, we should get into this book.
We should.
Do you have some fun facts for us, Kieran?
You know what? I reckon I do. So The Way of the Househusband, for some reason, I don't know why. I thought this was like current, but not like that current. It actually only started coming out in 2018, which I was like, I was surprised about, but now that I think about it, it's not really that.
Honestly, same, because I saw one of those out of context panels of the lady in the store when he's asking for the good stuff or whatever, and he's talking about flour, and she just like, we do not. And, like that panel by itself. And then when I was reading this, I was like, hey, I saw that like 2 years ago. And this explains why, because it was probably the fan translation of it.
Yeah, so it's by Kosuke Ono, who he did like a one-shot for the people who published this, which is Shinchosha. I think that's how you say it, but probably fucking it up. And so this is his first serialization, his first proper series. And yeah, I mean, there isn't really much else to say about it other than so far it's sold over 1 million copies, so it's doing very well for itself. Wow. And I think it's up to volume 5 has been released in Japan. I think 3 weeks ago. Yeah, 3 weeks ago. So hopefully we'll get that one soon as well.
I was just looking, and the writer doesn't even have his own Wikipedia page yet.
No.
So I was like, I wonder how old that guy is. So I was going to check his Wikipedia page. Doesn't exist.
Yeah, he has a page on My Anime List, which literally just says, he wrote The Way of the Househusband.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all it says.
All I know is the art in this is freaking fantastic. So I just assumed he was like a long time, manga artist. Because it is freakishly good. Like, for a comedy book especially, I was not expecting this.
Yeah. So should we just get into talking about it?
Sure. So the basic plot is that Tatsu, which I'm sure I'm butchering everyone's name because it's me, he's the main protagonist of the series, and he is a former Yakuza boss who got married and decided, you know what, this Yakuza stuff isn't a good fit for me anymore. So he's like a house husband now. His wife... she works in advertising?
She thinks she's an advertising executive.
Yeah, and a designer, and she has a very strong work ethic. Her name's Miku, by the way. And so basically it's his wacky adventures while she's off at work most of the time. And it's just... It's a funny book, so I guess we'll just dive into.
It's a comedy manga. It's a comedy manga. It's not,
and so it's a little different from what we would normally do because each chapter is more like a little vignette. So
yeah,
there's not like, there's a few connecting characters and stuff, but there's not, so far at least, an overarching plot that you have to like read every single chapter to follow.
Yeah, which I think is why it got so popular online, because like you could post any of the chapters or like any like bit from either, because we're reading the first 2 volumes today, and you could post like anything from what we read online, and people would understand it.
Yeah, exactly. So it opens with him just, getting ready for the day, and they show him as this scary Yakuza man who, like, you see the giant dragon back tattoo, and he pulls out this knife, gets in his, like, nice suit, but then he puts on, like, an apron with, like, a goofy animal on the front and starts making a very, very impressive looking bento box.
I want that bento. It looks so good.
But it's great because every time he makes something for his wife, it's always like incredibly cutesy.
Very
like
cutesy.
It has little bears and stuff inside of it that are made of food. And then he, of course, because he's a house husband and makes all the food, he is also an Instagrammer, which they do have Google and Instagram and stuff, but they're always that like slightly misspelled version of it. Like Google is GUU instead of OO, which, I appreciate the slight change to avoid getting sued, I guess. I don't know. Who would sue this beautiful comic?
Google.
Is my question. Google.
They would.
Yeah, they would, definitely. So he's like getting the perfect angle as his wife like tears through the house being like, I have to go. And he's like, but you didn't grab your lunch. So he runs through the city on his bike. The cops stop him thinking he's like, he is was a Yakuza boss. So they're just like, oh no, it's this Immortal Dragon. He's going to destroy us all. And he's just basically like, get the hell out of my way. But he hilariously tries to bribe them with some coupons. He's like, oh, I get what's going on here. Because he's Yakuza and pulls out what you think is going to be like a stack of cash. And it's like a bunch of coupons. And he's like, well, that's what he has. So that's our little intro to him.
Like, can we talk about like how perfect like the first like 4 or 5 pages are? They're so like such a good setup for like the rest of the story.
That's why I said I thought that this was like a veteran manga artist and writer, because it's so well paced, and like just the way it's framed is like I'm shocked if this is a person's first book. That's what I'm saying. It's that good that it's surprising.
Yeah, like the first like couple pages just do like such a good job of like setting up like who Tatsu is like as like a Yakuza person, because he looks so fierce and so like deadly, but then just like it's so well like laid out, and just immediately makes that like hard shift from like very, very serious into very, very cute. And I love this opening. It's so good.
Yeah, I feel like the Yakuza games are probably a huge influence on this because of the... have you played those at all? No. Okay. Well, that one you are still a Yakuza in... I guess it depends on which one you're playing, but it's kind of the running joke that he's... Even though he's like also the dragon, and that was the other connection. I'm like, okay, that's gotta be someone that's a fan of those games, right? Or maybe it's just a trope thing. But either way, he's like a dude, same kind of dude, like kind of doesn't really get how the real world works. And it's less goofy because it's a little less domestic than this is, obviously. But all the little weird side quests where people have to explain like, hey, this is what I do for work. And he's like, people make money doing things that aren't, shaking down businesses. Crime. He's always like baffled by everything. It's pretty good. It's a easy recommend series because it's just so weird that it's worth grabbing. And they're all pretty much the same game, except, they tweak the mechanics and stuff a little bit. So
is that the one where you sing karaoke?
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's like, I think that and like fighting a guy in an alleyway is like the only things I've ever really seen from Yakuza. And
there's also like
make me want to play the games.
Yeah, there's batting cages that you can do for some reason. But my favorite is like the slot cars that they race. So there's like a guy you befriend who like runs the slot car races, and you modify your little car and everything. But when it flies off the track, there's like a super dramatic scene of his character being like, no. And I've seen it used as a GIF someone was like, how is there a GIF that's the perfect context for a car flying off the track? And they're like, because Yakuza exists. So, but back to the book. So, chapter 2 is one where a door-to-door salesman shows up selling knives, and he basically intimidates this guy on accident. Like, he never seems to be trying to intimidate anyone.
No, he's never trying to. No.
But he's also like a foot taller than every other character so far.
Yeah,
and he's like showing off his knife skills and just completely freaking the guy out. It's pretty amazing.
He's also like, anytime he's ever drawn, no matter where he is or what he's doing, he's always like underlit or like has like big harsh shadows across his face. Doesn't matter where he is or like what the actual light source in the room is, but he has like these big dramatic shadows on his faces, and he's got like a little bit of stubble, and he's got like a big scar over his eye. So like no matter the panel, he looks intimidating and very frightening, and it's incredibly funny.
And is also still wearing his Shiba Inu like cartoon face apron over his suit this entire time.
Oh, of course.
And then he makes an entire meal for this guy just to be like, okay, but if I'm going to buy these knives, I want to try them out. So instead of just like cutting something, like cutting up some vegetables or something, which he does do, he makes an entire meal and has the guy taste it. And even that guy, as he's leaving smiling, he's thinking to himself, you know, that guy, he was kind of freaking me out. Yep. I'm getting the hell out of here.
Yeah, he eats it, and he has. Have you ever watched Food Wars?
I have seen a couple episodes. Yeah,
he does like so in Food Wars. It's a cooking anime. When they eat the food, it's like really good, and they have like this sort of out of body experience. He kind of did, like when the guy eats it, he kind of does that, and he's like, it's nothing fancy. But he added minced fish paste to the hamburger, which imparts a subtle flavor. Takes me back to my hometown. And he starts crying.
Yeah. It's really good. And honestly, now I want to try that.
I want to eat it too. But he's like sitting there and he's like, what am I doing? This isn't selling knives. I really need to leave.
So did he ever sell a knife? We'll never know, because he never came back.
We'll never know. It's
kind of hoping he'd run into him again later, just so we knew how his knife business. No, I don't really care.
I do want to skip ahead and talk about So I think it says so when the wife is first introduced a bit later, she's like he's out shopping for something. And he's talking to this guy about like getting a Blu-ray box set for Crime Catch Polycure, I think is what the show is called. And the guy at the shop is like, that. Oh, well, and just has like this massive like 2-panel monologue about like which version he needs to buy. And then he hits the guy in the throat. But it implies that he basically hits him in the throat so fast that the guy doesn't even notice.
Yeah.
Until he just starts choking. And then he's like, I've got the money. Just bring me the goods.
Yes. Every time he buys anything, it sounds like he's doing a drug deal.
Oh, every single time. But then it's like, there's like a panel where he's like off screen. He's like, also, can you sign me up for a point card?
Yes, he's also obsessed with the point cards at every location.
Well, he's a house husband. He's got to be all about the aggressive couponing.
Well, you know, that's fair. I mean, I'm sure he's not bringing in as much money as a house husband as he was as a Yakuza boss.
As a Yakuza, yeah, no, I wouldn't think so.
Doesn't generally pay the same. But that actually ends in a very cute scene of like his wife getting home, and it's her birthday, right? Is that what's going? Yeah, and so he's like made her this super cute cake. He decorates the whole apartment. He like immediately gives her a massage before she even like gets to see everything. He's like, man, this guy is like an amazing husband. Look at him go.
He's a great husband, and like I do enjoy that he is like ex-Yakuza, and he's like, I'm going to be a house husband, but he's really good at it. Mm-hmm. and he quite and it's like, and it's one of those things where it's like he isn't a house husband because he's hiding from the Yakuza, or he, you know, thinks that this will be like easier. He's a house husband because he loves his wife.
Right.
He's a big wife guy.
Yes, exactly.
Which I really enjoy, and I think this one in particular kind of makes you want to root for Tatsu in like everything that he's doing. Like, he's interesting and kind of cute before this.
Yeah.
But I think when I found out like, oh, he's just doing this because he's like big about his wife, I was like, oh yeah, I want you to win at everything that you're doing now.
Mm-hmm. He put his entire heart and soul into that as his new thing, because he approaches it the same way, where it's like, that's the family, you do, you know, everything is for the family, except now it's his family. And then hilariously it ends up being like the copy that he ended up picking was one she already has, and so he's takes responsibility and tries to cut off his own finger.
Threatens to cut off his own finger, so she punches him out the window.
Yes. The slapstick stuff seems like it's kind of out of nowhere, but in a way that makes it funnier, because you're like, they're kind of grounded half the time, and then there'll be stuff like that where she just body checks him and he breaks through the window and is flying over their balcony. And I'm just like, well, he's dead.
But I kind of like, because I think in the previous one he meets up with one of his like old Yakuza buddies, and they end up going to a cooking class. And he's like,
Mesa.
Boss, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing this? Mm-hmm. And he's like, violence is not the answer. And then when he makes fun of him again, he like punches him through a wall. Yeah. And I was like, oh, so like he's really strong. And then you read this one, you're like, oh, of course, like his wife is also really strong. That just makes sense. Why would they not both be super strong?
Mm-hmm. There's a one right before that where he meets up with a bunch of other Yakuza by accident. He like trips and crashes through their car or something. And then they think they're on some like secret mission with him because he's like ordering them to do different stuff. And then it turns out he's just like at a sale, and you have to be really quick and aggressive to grab the stuff that's the best deals, because all the other, and it's literally, he's the only man in the giant crowd. It's all like the housewives like vying over stuff. Yeah. And then he's like pissed off at the other Yakuza because they were only able to get like a shirt and a couple gloves or something. Yeah. He's like, you guys need to learn how to, you guys need to learn how to shop. Yeah. But the next one after the birthday one, I loved, because we got a Roomba last year, and it's all about this Roomba, and he's very, very into having this Roomba at first until it misses a corner. And then he's like talking to the Roomba like, hey, if you want to be good at your job, you got to really get in the cracks. And he shows him how to wrap a towel around his sword, and he's like getting it back in there and scrubbing it. And then the cat, which my cats don't go anywhere near the Roomba. They avoid it. But his cat decides it's a good idea to like...
His cat is such a little shit.
Yeah. So the cat goes up and messes with the Roomba, gets its tail caught. And then there's like... If they need to animate this simply for this scene to exist, because it's basically the cat for like 3 or 4 pages just crashing into every single thing in their apartment and just completely destroying it right as, his wife gets home and finds him. He's just like covered in like food and stuff, but he looks like someone murdered him. It looks like he's like got blood everywhere, and he's like, I messed up, boss.
Yeah. And he's like, some cocky punk moved onto my turf, and it just ends. But like, I really, the bits with the cat jumping and running around the house, I think like kind of like are a good example of what I really, really like about the art, and that like everything's really, I think we've used this term before. I can't remember what book it was, but it's like everything, all the panels feel really cinematic. Like they're really well considered angles. Everything is like really heavy on like the line work and lots of like movement lines and big harsh like shadows and stuff, and it makes everything feel really like super dynamic and really like super interesting and like very heightened. And so like when the cat's like running around the apartment, it's not just like pictures of a cat moving around the apartment. It actually really feels like this thing is like moving and just bursting everywhere. And it's like, it makes it such a like fun, such a fun scene. And I think like it's the same as well whenever he's like getting things ready or like making his food or like going to like the sales or whatever. Like it's the same kind of thing. Like there's all these big heavy lines everywhere and he's like very prominent and like, you know, super detailed and stuff. And it's almost like he's been picked out of like this dark, gritty detective film,
right?
And then just like dropped into like a light, fluffy slice of life anime, right. And it's
exactly.
But, like he doesn't match the tone of anything at all, and it just makes it even funnier, and it's like again, like you said, I'm so surprised that this is this person's first series because like this looks so good,
yeah. And the recurring themes of like he tries to like he's trying very hard to be a good person, a good husband, a good neighbor, but all the neighbors are terrified of him, of course. And like one of them, the neighbor kid, like the mom is like, "Hey, could you watch him? Because nobody else is available." And he's like, "Oh yeah, sure." And then he's like, "You want to play some games?" And the kid's like, "Oh, okay. You have games here?" And of course, they're all like gambling. Like he's trying to teach him how to play like cards and dice and mahjong and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And even the little kid is like, "These are not kids' games. Like, what are you doing?"
I do love that he's like, "You like to play?" And he's like, "Sure do. I'm also meant Mario Kart."
Mario Kart, that's right. Because he does not have any video games. That must not be a Yakuza thing.
But yeah, I did love that at the very end he gives the kid one of the you know police action polycure figurines that belongs to his wife, and he breaks it and he's like, "Don't worry, leave the cleanup to me. Everybody makes mistakes sometimes. What matters is how you redeem yourself afterwards." And then he just drops it into a barrel and buries it in the backyard.
Yeah,
and it's just like the whole time he looks really like concerned and very sincere, and then you immediately turn the page and he looks like really dark and shadowy again while he's burying it.
Yeah, he said you gotta bury him 6 feet under is what he tells the kid. And then his wife shows up and is just like, super glue. Like, come on, man. Were there any other highlight stories you wanted to hit on volume 1? I think we're most of the way through that at this point.
I did really enjoy when they go to the mall. He's trying to get help from like the shop assistants and they're just like not talking to him, and she's like, "I think you come across really intimidating." And he just has to try on like all these different outfits, and all of them he looks really terrifying. Yes. And I think it's solely because and again it's like that thing because she's standing in the middle of the mall, we're just like wearing a hoodie and just looks like a normal person, but even when he's just standing there wearing the outfits, he has like big harsh shadows all over his body and like big underlight on his face, and I'm like, how is this happening? How does he always look like this?
It's very good. He has basically like Mario 64 Lakitu, but with lighting effects, like always following him just off panel.
And then at the very end, he finally comes out in a polycure like little maid apron outfit, and like I loved the fact that his wife is like, "Oh my god, it's so cute. All right, now let's do the poses and the catchphrases from the show in the middle of the mall." and I really liked it because I was like, "Oh, cool. His wife is also a fucking weirdo." Yeah,
it's great. I like his wife's character because like at first you don't see her much, but the few times you get like those more quiet moments like this, like that specific arc where they're in the mall it's really cute because, you know, they both clearly love each other and are trying to support each other, but they're both very different in a lot of ways because of the whole being a Yakuza versus being a professional thing. However, them both being kind of weirdos is kind of the glue that binds them together, which I really liked.
It's very cute. I do really like their relationship.
Yeah. And she's always like trying to encourage him because he's always, if he does anything even slightly wrong, he's so down on himself. And it's still like better than what 90% of people could ever accomplish.
Oh my goodness, yes.
So she's always like, "No, it's okay. You know, calm down. You don't have to cut your finger off."
Don't cut
again. Oh,
it honestly took me a second in that scene to realize what he was doing, because I thought he was gonna I think he was doing like a seppuku thing, and then when I was rereading it, I saw the pinky like on the ground, and it just made it even funnier for me.
Yeah, I think again going back to the Yakuza games, I think that's the only reason I knew what was happening right then, because that is a thing that happens in those games.
Right.
Cutting the pinky off thing. So, you're just constantly having to cut your pinky off when you're in the Yakuza.
That pinky cutting minigame?
Yeah. Thankfully, no. So, do we want to give thoughts on Volume 1, Kieran, before we move on?
Yeah, sure. I loved it. Just to be immediately upfront about it, I thought Volume 1 was great. It's such a good, introduction to, the character and the situation. The pacing and comedy is super tight. And yeah, I think I read the first 2 chapters and I was like, sick. I can't wait to get to the second one because this is so good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. I bought it when it first came out on the Viz app, which was a while back. And I read it, and it's a very quick read. It's 100 and something pages, but it's a manga, so you're just doing this on the tablet the whole time. And I was a little disappointed that was all that there was so far because I wanted to keep reading. And now there's 3 volumes, so my wish was answered. Yeah, it's such an easy recommend, especially for, I feel like it works really well for people that are fans of anime and stuff because there's tropes that they kind of play with in that space that work really well. So yeah, I think Volume 1 is a must read, honestly.
But do I recommend both volumes? You have to listen to the end to find out.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it really takes a nosedive. Yeah. Or does it?
Volume 1 is perfect comedy. The other 3 volumes
really offensive. Whoa. No. Don't want to cast aspersions. So Volume 2, actually, that first little story in there cracked me up a lot because
oh my god, it's
so good. The aging, they're playing off the trope of the housewife feeling oh, my face is sagging and I'm not in good shape anymore. So his solution to this is to start hula hooping in the middle of their tiny apartment and knocking everything over. And his wife is just kind of hanging out reading manga, and she's immediately what the hell are you doing in the apartment? And so he just starts crashing into everything. So she makes him go to a fitness place, and it's called Goku Fitness, by the way. I wanted to verify that because I vaguely remembered it being called something Dragon Ball related.
Goku Fitness.
And basically he forms a relationship with a lot of the neighborhood housewives, and they all just join this fitness class together, and he has such a good time. It's so cute because he's this huge scary dude with the scars and never takes off his sunglasses. And then he just does some amazing poses. I don't know if this will show up on the camera if you're in the live feed, but I mean, basically doing the poses, everyone's getting in on it. And I also appreciated the way he draws women in this. There isn't just the one face, it's
oh yeah.
People of different ages actually have slightly rounder faces or what, not everyone is super scrawny all the time. It's he did a good job of doing all that stuff too. But yeah, I really liked this intro to Volume 2 one where he's just finally seems like he's doing everything right until the very end when he accidentally walks into the women's changing room because he's just walking and chatting with them and isn't really paying attention. And, in a lot of animes, it'd be the kind of pervy scene, but
yeah,
they do a good job of it not being that. Nobody's in there fully undressed or anything. They're just oh, hey, this is the women's locker room. But his reaction is bursts himself through the wall and does this crazy roll and smashes his head into the floor, bowing, telling the boss lady that he's ready for his punishment. And like usual, he assumes that they're gonna beat the crap out of him for any kind of small trespass. Bury me in
the mountains.
Yes.
Toss him in the ocean wearing cement shoes. And they're just oh, he looks like he's doing a yoga pose.
Right. And they're it was an honest mistake. It's just, it's handled much better as a joke in this than literally any other manga I've ever seen that trope done in.
Absolutely.
So that's the intro to Volume 2, and it really landed for me.
I would like to talk about the next one where he's growing herbs.
Yes.
And the police are kind of trying to like get after him, and like the start of this one isn't probably as strong as like the rest of them, but just like the sheer comedic value of him going into this place with like another Yakuza guy that he knows, and they like kind of swap these little parcels, and they're like, he's going inside that restaurant, that must be where the drug deal's going down, let's bust in, and they burst in through the door, and they're all just sitting at a table wearing like Groucho Marx glasses, just staring at
That is I screenshotted that panel just to like crop it out, just to have it on my laptop or, on my tablet, because I loved it so much. The panel is so funny.
Fucking funny.
It's the same glasses in Persona. They're called joke glasses. So I'm wondering if that's just like a common thing.
Right, yeah. And I love that, like, looking at the panel, like, they're sitting at the table wearing the glasses. Everyone else in the restaurant also seems to be wearing the glasses, and so is the waitress.
Yes. And a bunch of them are, like, people from his fitness class. Like, a bunch of the other people in the restaurant.
I do love that he's made friends.
Yes, and then the guy that keeps showing up is Mesa, and he's just, like, he's, like, a lower-rung Yakuza who is kind of attached himself to Tatsu because he wants to like kind of rise the ranks. And so he's like, you got to teach me how to be, the best Yakuza. So he's teaching him via these little life lessons that he's learned by being a house husband. And it is really cute, actually, because
it's very cute.
That guy's like, we should fight and stuff. And he's like, no. We need to go shopping.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the drugs were like basil that he grows on his porch.
Oh yeah, he's like, the drugs are in that suitcase, and then he opens it up, and in possibly one of the most sinister looking panels, he's like, and it's like, and the text is all like italic and bold and like creepy looking. He's like, it's moist potpourri.
Yeah. So
he's like, yeah, it just smells real good.
Yeah, it smells real nice, he says. And yeah.
It's very good. Just them and all the Groucho Marx glasses just staring at the cops.
Yeah. So the next one is we kind of find out that he's gotten so into this whole being the stay-at-home husband that he's really good at everything. So he's been just like making all these arts and crafts projects and hand making things, and like to the point where the apartment is now completely full of all the like little gadgets and stuff he's bought to make different food and everything. And I'm like, it's great because those are all the gadgets that most kitchens wouldn't be able to have. And it's just showing like, yeah, normal people don't have room for all this crazy junk. Like it's just taking up their entire apartment. She's like, I'm really glad that you're, enjoying doing this so much, but get all this crap out of my apartment right now. So basically he ends up at a swap meet, and another Yakuza dude like gets up in his face, and you always think like, okay, this is where he's finally going to have to like go back to his roots and fight a guy. And instead he's like, I have a peace offering for you, and pulls out this kitty cat like themed potato peeler. And he's like, you can peel anything with this, if you know what I mean. And then he pulls out a blender, and it's like the bullet blenders, those just little like single, like for small batch blending, but it's shark themed, like it's a shark mouth leading up to the blade. And he's like,
I really want that blender.
You can turn anything into mincemeat. And like the more he shows the guy just is like freaking out, thinking he's about to use these tools on him.
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, you drive a hard bargain, I'll throw this into, and he just pulls out a rubber ducky.
He's just like, I don't know what he's going to do with that, but I don't want to find out.
And so he's just like, mercy, have mercy. He apparently thinks he's going to be murdered with a rubber ducky, which,
honestly, if someone said that they could do that and I believed them, I also wouldn't stick around to find out.
Like, I really don't want to know where this is going, so I will leave now.
Oh, I think we can guess where it's going to go.
So it's great because he's very good at sticking to his like commitment to no longer be a Yakuza, no matter what everyone else thinks about him, which I do appreciate. Like,
oh, it's incredible.
I kept waiting for that turn of like, oh, well,
Yeah.
this is going to be what pushes him back into it and put him and his wife in danger. And so far, that's like, that is not what this book is about at all, which I appreciated a lot.
No. There's actually, like, just flicking through, there's a little bit further on, there's the one where he goes to buy the car.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to test drive this car, but he keeps thinking that, like, so he's like, let's take it for take this bad boy out,
right.
hit a few stores, running deals. And it's like, oh my God, he's such a fucking idiot. But like, while they're driving, he keeps imagining people that they're driving past. There's like one guy with a gun, and then another guy's got a knife, and then like a bazooka. And I like the first like hallucination, I guess, that pops up. I was like, oh no, like this is going to be the bit where, like, you know, the danger really like happens,
right?
And then it's just all in his head. And I really liked that, like, every time you think that, like, the danger is going to, like, find him and his wife.
And he kept being trying to pick cars that would be good for transporting bodies and stuff.
Yeah.
He's like, you couldn't fit a person in that trunk. And they're like,
yeah, it's very good. Like that it remains true to its, like, it remains true to itself.
Right. And it's like, it's weirdly so sweet and innocent about everything, like in ways you wouldn't expect. Like the one, I think it might be the very next one where he actually does run into another Yakuza guy, but this guy is like committed himself to running like a food truck that's like, they only make crepes.
Yeah, he's running a crepe station.
And so they have what everyone thinks is going to be like a battle, but it ends up being a cooking battle. And both of them make amazing looking food, of course, because all the food in this book looks fantastic. And they both immediately start taking all the pictures with different angles. They're like getting on the floor to get like cool angles of the food they made. And then posting them on Instagram. And the best part is, I didn't notice this on my first read through, that if you look, it's like both of them have like one of them has no likes, and Tora, who's the other Yakuza guy, and Tatsu only has one like. After all of that. And I'm like, damn, I mean, even using hashtags, you'd think they'd get a few more likes than this, but apparently not. And they seem so happy.
It's tough out there.
And also it says that it's 2 hours later, so it's like nobody appreciates his hard work on this food except his wife. Do you have another one you wanted to highlight?
I did just want to talk about they end up playing volleyball against, so him and all the housewives are playing volleyball, and they end up playing against the Bears, which is like another gang. And it was one of those ones where, again, I was like, oh man, I wonder how this is going to go. Like, is he going to end up like intimidating them when they lose, or like what's going to, and they just play volleyball.
Yep.
And the Bears win, and then they shake hands and they take a photo at the end, and it's really cute.
It also has one of the best parts where, with him not understanding how to talk like a normal human, where he hits the ball back and goes, "Yeah, I whacked it and good," and all the housewives yell "phrasing," which was very good. But yeah, it's like the guys they fight look like. Almost like the mafia stereotype clothes, like the tracksuits and stuff. So I was like fully expecting something bad to go down. And
absolutely.
The fact that they're able to keep subverting that expectation is really good, because I'm like, I don't want it to turn into that. Like if there ends up being like an overarching story, like, yeah, that's cool and all, but you know, I don't want it to become like an actual Yakuza running from the law or whatever story.
No, I want him to make bento.
Exactly.
I do really enjoy the very, very last one in volume 2, where so we finally get like a bit more of like a wider story where her parents come for tea. And like the start of it's really interesting, because like you don't really know what to like kind of make of his parents, or like what the kind of relationship is, and then you realize that the dad really wants to be friends with Tatsu.
Yeah. Like he just wants to play catch, because he's like, he never had a son, I assume, is like the joke there, to play. So he's like,
and he keeps trying to like ask him about like different stuff, and Tatsu just like doesn't Like, he doesn't know how to respond. Like, he asks him, like, do you like dogs? And he's like, I don't have many good memories about dogs. And he's like thinking of like the K9 unit at the police station. And he's like, do you like to sing? And he's like, I've never sang once. And he's like, okay. And then he tries to like get him to play catch with him. And it's so cute. It's so fucking adorable. Because his father-in-law is throwing the ball. Tatsu catches it and it runs it back to him. And I was like, you fucking weirdo.
Yeah. And then when he finally throws it, he's like, throws it so hard, the dad like flies backwards into a tree. And he's like, oh God, I'm so sorry. And he's like, son, that was a great throw. So it's like, he has his in now because his father-in-law is like calling him son and they're getting along great. It was like totally, again, like, you expect some bad thing to happen and it keeps not doing that, like going against the trope for comedy's sake. And I think the comedy aspect is really why that all of that stuff even works. Like, you couldn't play this straight. It wouldn't work at all.
No. I will say, like, out of most of the things that we've reviewed, this one, like, by far and away made me laugh out loud the most.
Yeah.
The constant subverting of expectations, just the idea in general, like, it's so funny. I really can't like emphasize enough how well like timed and paced like all the jokes are, and how like the visuals and the actual story just like marry together so well to make something that's like genuinely super funny. And yeah, I could not recommend this enough. Like, if you want something that's like a really easy read, super light and refreshing and just funny, like Way of the House Husband easily gets my highest recommendation. I'm gonna buy like all of the volumes that are available.
Yeah, same here. Like, that's just, it's an easy recommend because it's funny in a way that isn't like mean about it. It's not offensive about it. It's just genuinely well written, well paced, and a lot of it's just in the timing, like you said, like the reveals and the different shots of him looking super scary, like juxtaposition against, like his wife just being kind of a goofball, but also a very hard worker. But when she's with him, she just, is herself. So her being like super into cutesy anime was a nice touch because that kind of forced him to like go shop for those things, which led to some really good scenes in the book. So yeah, it's just really, really funny. And I have to say, like, there's usually a style of humor that doesn't translate all the time well for me with manga, like when there is humor in it, especially with older stuff. I feel like the 90s anime stuff was like really bad about that. But this is just, it all worked. Like, every joke seemed to land for me, which is surprising.
Yeah, I think one of the big things for me that really made it like work super well is that like the Tatsu is often like the butt of the joke, but not in like a mean way. Like there's nothing mean or nasty about any of the jokes in the story. Like no one's being like made fun of.
Right.
It always comes just from like his like confusion and like just absolute blistering sincerity. And yeah, I really liked that aspect of it.
Yeah, along that same line, I like how even the other characters, and probably because he's this big scary dude, like they never give him a hard time about not understanding something. They always are oh, actually, this is what a normal human would do. And then he's just like, oh, okay. Like I don't know. It's handled really well. Like everything about how the humor is laid out. So yeah, easy recommend from both of us, I would say.
Easy peasy recommend.
All right. So Kieran, that's going to bring us to the end. So where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Mr. K_Bennett, or you can check out my D&D podcast for Crits and Giggles. That's at for CNG Podcast on Twitter. Jonah, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at @ArealJonah, and also right here on this Twitch channel that if you're watching live, because that's a thing we do now apparently, twitch.tv/inksandissues, and I'm going to be trying to stream some more now, which I'm thinking of doing some more of the comic book related games, because that was fun when I did a few of those back in the day, and now my internet connection is much more stable, so that should make streaming a heck of a lot easier. But yeah, with that, we will see you all next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Need more mutants, metahumans, or monsters in your life? Then check out these other Geekly Inc. shows, including Cthulhu and Friends, Dear Internet, Greetings Adventures, Transformation Sequence, and many more fantastic podcasts. You can help us make the show the best it can be by supporting us over at patreon.com/inksandissues, where you can get bonus content, early access to episodes, and can even vote on comics for us to review. Don't forget to also leave us a 5-star rating and review to help us spread the word. Want to interact with us on Twitter? You can find us at Inks and Issues, or on Twitch at twitch.tv/inksandissues. Or you can find our wonderful editor Justin at MRECOCK on Twitter. Now do yourself a favor and go read some gosh darn comics.